So, are we ready to go? Jeff,
Ready to go?
You're recording. We're live.
Recording live.
So, thank you all. I'm glad we could squeeze all of you into the room. When Victor and I talked about this subject matter, it was right when Facebook Live had started, and there were a bunch of opportunities we saw, both, not even both, it's just across the board. Opportunities for success in reaching people in a different way than you might have before, utilizing platforms in ways that you hadn't before, the legal issues like you hadn't before, the technology issues like you hadn't before. It seems like something so simple, live streaming. We've been doing live streaming for so long, but when you match that with social, and when you match that with a bigger audience. So for instance, I mean, back then when we were talking, I don't even remember if Chewbacca Mama had come out yet, but you look at the power of Chewbacca Mom with how that went from 0 to 100 million in a matter of days. So no matter where you were, I was on vacation with my family at the Alani, and this isn't a pitch for the Alani, but you're sort of, you don't want to be connected, but still you were connected, and people around the pool were talking about, like you would hear people talking about the Chewbacca thing, and you would hear that laughing, that cackle, no matter where you were. It was completely bizarre, but it was wholly because of Facebook Live. I don't think they could have bought a better marketing campaign to announce the release of that product. But then, on the flip side, you had people getting killed on Facebook Live. And we don't have, in social live, the delay like you do in broadcast television. And though some people would say, oh, well, you're never going to get the numbers of broadcast, we're not going to talk about politics, I hope. But the other night at the debate, there was, they're now saying it's the precursor to Trump TV, where it was it was called the Right Side Broadcasting Group that live streamed a set that looked like it could have been CNN, Fox News, whatever, outside of the venue where the debate was, where they were doing a pre-show and a post-show, that in the live stream, there were 200,000 people that were live streaming, which then you say, oh, that's not that big, but quite honestly, compared to basic cable, that's a decent number.
Yeah.
And then in the people that watched afterwards, off the DVR, basically, that reached 8.5 million in one night. And that is a big number these days in terms of people watching programs. So it no longer can be, oh, you're just going to be reaching those niche people if, again, you're leveraging the platform correctly. So what we're going to do today, and I'm going to stop talking and just be asking questions, what we're going to be doing today is really talking about platforms, usage, what are the best cases, why even do live social? What does that, who cares? What does that mean? And what do we talk about in the future? Because so much has changed. We're still in the Wild West phase when we're talking about social live video. Players that were around when we came up with the idea for this session are no longer. There's players like what we have at the table that you'll meet in a second that wasn't around when we decided to have this session. Or wasn't live. I won't say it wasn't around. I'm sure it wasn't. You flipped your switch or clicked your fingers or heels, whatever. And that has nothing to do with the anniversary of Somewhere Over the Rainbow with the red shoe. Anyway, I digress. We wanted to have at least some female representation, and we had that until this morning when Jenny Stiven unfortunately could not make it because of a family issue. In her stead, we have our first person, and what we'll do is we'll walk down the dais, and everybody could just quickly introduce themselves and what their company does, and then we'll get into the meat of things. But Andrew, we'll start with you.
Hi guys, I'm not Jenny, I'm Andrew. Last minute replacement. I'm the founder of Substance Global. It's a digital marketing agency based in London and Los Angeles, and we create content, provide creative solutions and strategy for all the globe's top entertainment brands who work with Paramount, HBO, Netflix, Sony, Warner Brothers, Fox, amongst others.
Oh, and my introduction to Andrew was going to be that even though we just got him, it is the day after he was on Tom Cruise's shoulder, or his company was, because they streamed, they did a Facebook live stream last night at the Jack Reacher premiere, where they had from the POV of Tom's shoulder. So hopefully you'll be able to get into some of that.
Sure.
My name is Andreas. I'm one of the co-founders of Make TV. We are located in Germany, Cologne, right now preparing our move to Seattle. And we are providing a live video cloud. And this product enables producers or broadcasters to acquire live video feeds from a multitude of sources. Could be a Periscope app, a Periscope live feed, or a Facebook live feed. And then we enable the producer to browse, curate all these available feeds and route them back in the TV program or, of course, on digital platforms. So our product is not for delivering, especially on social media platforms. It's more to use and to grab all these feeds and to make them available for journalists or producers in the entertainment space to use these feeds live, directly in professional productions. That's basically it.
Hi, my name is Lippe Oosterhoff. I'm co-founder and CEO of Busker. Busker is a live streaming platform, just like Facebook Live, just like Periscope. And the difference is that on our app, anybody can live stream and make money, and not from ads, which is the traditional way of making money on the internet, but through transactional revenue. So the viewers can either tip the person who's broadcasting, so think about musicians, for example, or the viewers can buy products straight from the broadcaster while they are live, completely integrated into the experience. So we call that social commerce. And I'm sure we'll get to why we've done that, but that's me in a nutshell.
I'm Nathan McGowan. I'm the head of digital product experience for Hollywood Reporter and Billboard. Those are definitely known as industry brands, but we do have a really large consumer audience. I think on a really good month for us across those two brands, we'll reach about 30 million ComScore uniques US, pretty big following on social too, about 9 million. So we have the ability to reach a lot of people, especially with video. We've got a deal in place with Facebook where they pay us to produce video, so that's meaningful, and that's helping someone like us turn the corner in early stages of monetizing video and seeing some impact from it.
Hi, I'm Greg Morrow. I'm the SVP of Digital for the Enthusiast Network. The Enthusiast Network is a media company that has its heritage in print with brands like Motor Trend, Hot Rod, Surfer, Bike, Powder, that is in the transition to emerging platforms like social, video, events, and digital. We've been able to, through that transition over the last several years, acquire a really substantive social audience around people's passions, particular sports or car interests, that connects with over 100 million people weekly.
And I'm Jeffrey Stansfield. I'm the owner and founder of Advantage Video Systems. We're a systems integration company. We build and install and deliver technology systems for production, post-production, and video streaming. We've built over 222 brick and mortar affiliate TV stations, as well as over 150 internet TV stations, and we do a lot of live event streaming. We work with our clients to help monetize their internet TV stations, their events. We do a lot of live event streaming. We just did one for a guy named Red Foo who does Party Rock House, and for his fans, and his fans get on there. And so we do a lot of live event stuff. We do a lot of production stuff. We do a lot of post. And so we're really big in the video streaming, and we've got a lot of involvement in Facebook and some of the other streaming applications out there.
Cool, thanks everyone. As you can see, we have a really good mix coming from so many different places of the ecosystem, really, from production to placement to platform to, I can come up with a whole bunch more names, but just so everybody knows the style that we're going to do, it's not going to be ask you a question. We want to make it as conversational as possible, and that also includes you guys. So we're not, while we'll have a question and answer period at the end, please feel free to raise your hand, maybe even interrupt if you feel like you want to get something or ask a question. Just, we don't want to make it that it's a grandstanding opportunity for anybody. Really, it's about making sure that we all work together to bubble up the important things and move forward, because there's a lot to talk about. So just to set the playfield here, because there could be confusion, video on social which might have been recorded at any time. Some of these things that are live streamed might be later on. Let's call them as a DVR thing, that they're archived so people can see them. So to help us understand what we're talking about with live video on social, anybody have anything that doesn't need to be something you guys have done, but is there anything that you've seen that has really impressed you as a use of live social? I brought up that Chewbacca mama, but are there other instances?
Yeah. So one of the things that we've seen is that Facebook, YouTube, all these companies, when you give them your content and you put their content on them, they own a portion of that content. They can do what they want with it. They also control whether it's on. They can turn your video off if they find it that it doesn't fit the profile they want, or if they get some users that complain, or if someone complains about copyright infringement or this or that, they can just turn you off arbitrarily. They control your content. So a lot of our clients actually we don't advocate for live streaming on some of these. What we do, and what we found is some of our clients, the best way is to utilize live streaming, like either Facebook, whatever, to do a segment of it. So like one of my clients that we were talking about earlier was Dennis Prager, and he has a political talk show host, and he built an internet TV station, and he live streams the first 15 minutes of his broadcast. And then if you want to watch the rest of the broadcast, you have to go to his site, where he now controls the content. And a lot of our clients, some of our clients are doing extra videos, back-end videos. So they're going to do a show, and they talk about the show, or they do a behind-the-scenes show to build audience, and then utilize the big numbers that Facebook has and the social media to drag clients from the Facebook to their platform or to their app, and bring them into
Right.
their
So, but just in terms of a definition of what we're talking about with live video streaming on social, what are some examples of that? Like that, the Prager thing was good. It was here's a live thing, gain interest, and then drive them elsewhere. What about other options? What are other things we've seen?
So we measure what works and what doesn't work on our platform, right? So we don't produce content, but we watch people who do produce content on our platform. And what we've learned is that it's about engagement at the end of the day. It's a terrible cliched word, but what that means for live is that the audience, they interact with the broadcaster, right? And there's stuff happening on both sides of the the broadcaster interacting with the viewers interacting with each other. That lengthens the viewing time for everybody. It drives all the engagement metrics up. So just to challenge you on one thing, the Chewbacca, that to me it's got nothing to do with live. Right? Think about it. Like 99% of the views, probably more, they all happen on VOD. It was basically her uploading a clip to YouTube, but she happens to use the Facebook Live button because it's easy, right? So a big part of the hype around Facebook Live is that you no longer need to record a clip on your phone and then upload it, which takes ages, and you don't need to edit it. You can basically record and upload at the same time.
It's like a shortcut.
So
yeah.
They're using live as an upload mechanism. But to me, social live is about something else. It's about, hey, you can only do certain things because the audience is right there with you. And
you call it engagement, I call it participation.
Yes,
it's
exactly.
like being involved in it. And Jamie Oliver did the British chef, did a great thing last Christmas Eve. He live streamed cooking Christmas dinner on Christmas Eve, and his fans basically got to engage with the recipe making and call out what they thought should be in the dish, and they created and collaborated and made a Christmas dinner dish. And what a fantastic way to collaborate with the show, with the content.
Yeah.
So we to draw on that, I mean, intimacy and engagement are absolutely things that we've seen success across our portfolio of 50 brands. And when we look at principles, the other two that I would add are oddity and access. So really drawing on, and again, these are tried and true principles. So the engagement, a couple examples that I've seen are really successful are the MLS Armchair Analyst does a show on Monday mornings breaking down the games
You watch MLS?
I do watch MLS. I admit it.
Good for you.
And audience members are asking questions about certain games and certain plays, and so he's reacting. He's asking the audience, "What do you think about that red card?" And so it was a great example of people drawing on people's passions for that particular subject and driving that engagement. So that's kind of one example. On the oddity front. We brought in, one of our brands is Transworld Skateboarding, and we brought in and produced like kind of 100-foot rail, and brought in a YouTube star and with some of the other pro athletes, and real quick setup, real low production quality, but we got really high engagement and interest from the Transworld Skate audience because it was something they hadn't seen, and it was kind of in the moment. And then Access, the editor of Transworld Motocross, we don't have rights to the Supercross or AMA Motocross series, but he can go down in the pit, he can talk to the athletes, he can talk to the influencers, even though it's low production quality, and that intimate access where fans usually don't get to go has really created solid viewership. So those are three principles that we draw on.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't have engagement, then you might as well not be doing live, because that's what it's all about. It's all really all about, and it's all about capturing those clients and bringing them into your brand. One of our biggest success stories is NASCAR. We started streaming the pits, the mechanic pits. And we set up streaming with so people can log in, and there was a camera hooked up there, and there was audio hooked up there, and people could hear what the pit people were talking to the cars, and then we had a mic set up with the cars so we could hear the drivers, and then we had cameras around the racetrack, but it all hinged on the audience being able to engage, and we had social media people also in the pit. We added pit members to the pit.
So people in the field or people in the audience could ask questions that
could
were
ask
answered.
questions and
Like, do you really have to pee now, Mr. Driver? Is this the time?
they just go ahead and do it, but that's another story. But no, it was all about that, and it actually NASCAR saw a 18.3% jump in viewers watching, and a lot of people were actually streaming it in the stadium. They were sitting there in the NASCAR stadium watching the race, but also streaming it because it was an extra thing, and it was a revenue thing because they were charging. They charged $6.95 if you wanted to stream it, and so they had a huge audience, and it was very successful, and they're going to expand on it. They also, when you are, one of the most important things to do when you are engaging with clients is to take those clients and take control of those clients and bring them to your other brands. Most of my clients, we have a game plan of what we're going to do with those engagements. If you're just engaging with clients and you're just interacting with them, you're also losing an opportunity for sales. Your other products, bring them into your brands, teach them about what other brands you have, what other shows you have, and stuff like that, and collect the metadata and interact with them on that aspect as well.
I think a lot of that, I mean, we'll talk about monetization, but there's also other KPIs beyond monetization. So like Jeff, you talk about driving to something else, and it's interesting to say take control of the end user, because part of, to me, the joy of social is that they still have control.
Yeah.
Well, they can think they do.
I've
Greg,
got
what's
one example that is working great for us, that it wouldn't work without the fact that we have podcasts. We couldn't just ask Brian Cranston to come on site and do a Facebook Live video for us, but it's a really easy second step. After he is on site, he does a podcast. It's a totally different form of conversation. Take him into a studio, do 30, 40 minutes with our social audience, and then the whole point of that is that interaction. The comments that whoever's talking to him are fielding are part of the experience, and that's actually pretty difficult to manage, that commenting experience, but it's part of what just makes that the whole reason of doing it live. So we've seen a lot of success with that, and then we're especially happy about the fact that we have this other conversation we've already got booked that makes it really easy to do something like that.
Right. Andrew, you were talking about what was going on last night at Jack Reacher. Can you get into that and talk about, like, again, if we're saying that the main difference or really the specialness of live video and social is that back and forth. It's not just a broadcast, and certainly there's a lot of things that come into play. Like if you've got a following, if you wanted to use Facebook as your platform or Busker as your platform, and you only have a certain small following, just because you're doing live doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be successful. And it's, how do you build up those things?
Greg said it well. He called it oddity, but I call it surprise. It's kind of the same thing. I mean, a live stream of a red carpet event isn't that exciting. It's not that exciting to watch hundreds of people queuing in Leicester Square waiting for Tom Cruise to arrive. But if you put a camera on Tom Cruise's shoulder and called it Cruise Cam and have all the whole Facebook audience be able to ask Tom questions direct through that camera, then you've surprised them because they didn't know that was happening. We built up the anticipation for the event through advertising through the Facebook audience, but then it's actually hit them with a huge surprise. It's like Tom Cruise is well known for doing this kind of thing at red carpet events, so this was the big hit for us, is to kind of actually surprise them with a bit of content that they didn't see coming, and then go one step further and allow actual interaction. So, Tom, give us a smile. It's the same thing as we just saw before when you tipped that guy on Busker and he was like, oh, thanks, Lipper, that was great. And it was the same thing, Tom was calling out people, directly in the audience and giving them a smile or doing whatever they asked him to do within reason.
So was there interaction on that stream? Because you had a lot of numbers. Like, how
exactly,
big was the audience?
it's crazy, and like you just mentioned, moderation is killer when you're doing those live things. And we just had a huge team of people. It's a huge resource issue, and that's the other thing about preparing for live. Should it be live, you've got to have the resources to put the camera set up together and then actually have the moderation in place. And we have various tactics to handle that. But it's not just putting the camera in Tom Cruise's face and then doing it one to one. It's actually a bigger setup than that.
So,
Sorry, I have no idea. So how is Tom Cruise able to get the questions?
We're relaying it to him.
Oh,
Yeah.
You were watching it and then you asked him. So it wasn't
We're next
that
door.
he-
We are literally next
it
door.
wasn't that people could talk to him from live. It was that he was.
He was sometimes we'd have the camera that way. Sometimes he'd turn around and he'd have it and he'd be seeing it and he'd be interacting with it direct. So it just depended on what the situation was. But yeah, as immediate as you could probably get.
It's not like Google Hangout with both of you can see each other. It's just this is streaming, and then people.
Well, he could when you turn the camera around, he could see the questions coming in.
One of the
Yeah.
things that we've found successful in how we do that is because if you particularly at Facebook, you've got the comment stream below. On a phone, it's pretty small.
Yeah.
So you can actually have an iPad where you log in to the same comment stream as kind of a viewer, up-res the font size, so that and then place it so the actual talent can actually see it.
Right.
So that it creates that, because I think there's two ways that I've seen we've tried to do it, and I'm sure other people is have someone viewing the comment stream, throwing to the talent, or having the talent have access. So that the iPad solution is something we've found that's pretty simple for us to give to kind of make it a one-person show.
It comes down to the volume, right? So if you have 50 people watching you, you can just hold the phone, point it at your face, and read all the comments, and then you get the maximum amount of interaction and engagement and participation, right? If you have 10 million people watching you, that doesn't work, right?
And
now
that
you
was
need
our
a
thing
third
last
person
night.
to-
yeah,
You've got to do it to scale.
It's interesting. I remember doing an interview with Bill Maher when I was at ABC back in 2001 maybe, and it was sort of like, oh, ask us the questions, and then we would moderate, and Bill would answer, and then we would type it back in, and it's a total disconnect. Like I've done, last year I did a bunch of Twitter Q&As, which are fine, but nobody cares by the time that the answers
that's
come
it.
out. So the fact that you have that opportunity to, whether you're a celebrity or whether you're just hosting this live event, to be able to see that interaction and choose what you want to respond to. Even if it's just a shout out like, hey, XZ124, thanks, that's a great comment. Yeah, so anyway, it was like instead of worrying about typing it out, that to me is a huge saver with social video. And years ago when everybody was talking about second screen, we're now back down to one screen. It's just not that screen on your wall, right? It's on your tablet, phone, what have you. Yes.
And how did you advertise for
There was a global buy. Paramount's a pretty heavy spender with Facebook anyway, so they had a global buy that built up the anticipation and set
Especially
the
on
right
Tom
date.
Cruise titles.
There's a few Tom Cruise fans. Yeah. I mean, yeah, their social channels are pretty hefty, and they spent a fair bit behind them, and I think Facebook are obviously kinder to people who spend. So, yeah, they did their best to push through to as many feeds as possible. We haven't got all the metrics in yet, but it was in the tens of millions.
So I'm going to take this a little bit because I want Andres to be a part of it. Because of the fact that you're taking a lot of these live feeds and you're making them available for other broadcasters, really for curation to insert into their, what's the arrangement or trust with that end user that's making themselves available in a way that, you know, certainly there's a part of it that's like, oh, I might gain some fame by throwing myself into this, but what's your responsibility, or what's the broadcaster's responsibility to these people? What's that arrangement?
It totally depends on the format, right? So in the classical entertainment format, a TV show, so MTV did that show. It was a dance show in Australia a few weeks ago, and they announced a hashtag. Everybody was able to contribute themselves dancing, and then they were able to view and curate all these feeds in our router, and then they put selected ones back as overlays back in the program. And of course, it was a great incentive, gratification for the people who were on TV. They had fun and just were just happy. So that was an easy case. It's totally different when it comes to news, because then it's all about validation, trust, and so forth. And I watched a video 2.5 years ago from a 16-year-old girl out of Gaza, reported live during a bomb attack. And of course, it was a kind of a video which hit directly my stomach. And the difference between live and on demand was I was the whole time scared that something happens. Yeah? And the professional media was not able to cover that story because they had no footage. 2.5 days later, I saw a documentary from a public broadcaster in Germany covering that case. And then they talked about Hamas and pro and cons, but they didn't reach me anymore. Yeah? My opinion was made. And at this time, it was clear for me that that video is totally different thing than a live tweet, than a tweet or a Facebook post or whatever. And that it's very, very important, especially for broadcasters in the field of news, to get access to all these footage as soon as possible and to be able to report quickly with kind of the same footage, but with the necessary context around them. And in these cases, of course, it's you have security, validation, trust issues on all ends.
So whose for all of us, whose responsibility is it? Because we can talk about the democracy of social, but some things are not meant to be seen.
Just at the end, always the publisher. The publisher is at the end always responsible.
At the window,
Yeah. Of course, there are some tiers before that. So we try to validate metadata and user and all these things that we can really be sure that this video is from that geolocation from that time. But responsible at the end is the broadcaster, because in our terms and conditions, of course, we say we did this and this and this, but now it's on you.
Right. So whether it's, I don't know, Greg, Nathan, like where you've got actual publishers, are there sometimes that you're maybe afraid to do something for fear of what it might open you up to? And this goes for you too as well, like in terms of the people that are on your platform. Like,
yeah, I mean, for us, I mean, if you think about some of the sports that we're in, you take snowboarding, for example, someone hucks themselves, the side of the ramp is 22 feet, and then they get about 20 feet above that. So someone's basically launching themselves up to a 4-story building on a snowboard and then coming down. Or motocross track, mountain biking. The industry as a whole has gotten more extreme in terms of the separation of what the pros can do versus what a normal human being can do. And so the potential for death is there. So it's something that we certainly consider and are aware of. And there hasn't been, as far as I'm aware, any deaths on live, but there's certainly every year we have deaths in the industry.
I think one of the bravest live stunts was that jump from space, right? The big Red Bull, what was his name?
Red Bull,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, the potential for that to have gone wrong was massive.
But that
The only
also
reason why we
wasn't a
all
lot.
watched that.
Was that-
Exactly,
Yeah,
the
of course.
suspense was
Well,
huge.
The anticipation.
It was live for certain parts of it. So, like there was, what they did is they had a plane in the air, and they had transceivers on the balloon. So the transceivers were sending to the plane, and the plane was sending to a satellite. So about the first 25% was live, and then the last 25% was live. So there was only a certain period of time that was in between that wasn't.
Well, but the
live.
point was that when they started the live cast, they didn't know whether the guy would live or die an
Yeah.
hour later, right? That was the risk to the brand.
Yeah, well,
So I guess that's the line you're always towing, is you want to have that excitement, like why would
Of course.
somebody tune in?
Exactly.
And that jeopardy is certainly a part of it.
but that's what it's all about. I mean, I skydive, I climb mountains and stuff like that. And there's potential death all the time with me. But you do it because it's because you have to.
Yeah.
You know, and people who like that, people who like snowboarding, you know, do watch it because it gets them that excitement and thrill, and that's what they're going to do. I don't think there should be too many rules on what you can live stream, because that breeds censorship, you know, and stuff like that. I think, you know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that people would object to live streaming. You know, we have clients who do adult entertainment, and they build houses and have people living in these houses and live stream out these houses and have chat engines and have users. And you know, people can. There's probably a lot of people who don't
But
want to have that.
But again, I don't know, are those all, again, keeping it too social,
Right.
are those things on social? The thing with social is that once it goes out there, you've lost your full control over it. And
Well,
so,
not really.
I
So,
don't think so.
as a platform, this is nothing new, right? So it's user-generated content.
Right.
So the same applies to live. It's user-generated. So you keep an eye on it. So you remove it as soon as you disagree with it. The problem with live is it's going out as soon as it's being created.
Right.
It just means that you need to stay on top of it.
How do you stay on top of that?
How do you stay?
So we right now we have a team of people that constantly looks, you know, at all the content.
Really?
Right? And we also have people can just flag content as inappropriate. So we get early warning signals from the crowd. Now, sometimes that means that something has been live for 30, 60 seconds, right? And it's, a guy doing something with himself late at night. And, you know, that doesn't belong on our platform. But sometimes it's out there, and then it takes us maybe 30 seconds to remove it. And, you know, that's the price that you pay for us as a brand, right?
Right.
As a platform.
So
But it's
to
cool.
add to that, I mean, you've got, you know, one of the challenges I think social platforms have is how are they dealing with COPA, the Child Online Protection Act, as it relates to live streaming. So I have 3 boys, 13, 10, and 4, and my 10-year-old went to a party and downloaded Musical.ly and started, you know, broadcasting, so without my knowledge, and so he's presenting himself as an actor in lives, you know, not necessarily live because it's Musical.ly is not live, but it's something also to consider is the aspect of how how that relates to people that are in the live experience that don't have either intention or there's knock-on laws related to protecting those individuals that are not intended to be broadcast.
you had a question?
That was my question.
Oh, really?
Like, what do you do about people, like, let's say they're in a place they're not supposed to be, and they didn't mean to get live streamed, like, it's not their live stream, but they're in the background and they get in trouble for something. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can
I mean,
think,
that's-
like,
That
people
happens.
are gonna
It happens all the
It
time.
does happen. When Google Goggles came out, everybody was like, well, what about the people in the background that
Yeah.
didn't say they wanted to be?
Like, how do
yeah.
you protect yourself from liability as a company, and how do you protect those people? Because, I mean, there's something illegal to that if someone doesn't realize that they're being streamed
Yeah.
and they're getting caught on film, especially if they're like, I mean, and anything illegal, like if you're
Right. no.
But there's a bunch of issues there that tie in together, right? There's
Yeah.
privacy, streaming somebody else. There is doing something illegal, right? There's content that is like sexual or violence of nature that you don't want, right? And then there's copyright, so people streaming at concerts, right? And they're all solved in the same way by killing it, while it's happening. But it all depends on who's producing the content, because on our platform it's the users creating the content. But for many people here on the panel, it's professionals producing the live stream, right? So I think then it's a whole different set of challenges.
It's usually more controlled then, isn't it?
Exactly.
If you're producing a concert or a premiere event, usually people are pretty well behaved. They're out in
Control
public.
everything, right?
Yeah, you control everything. But for you, it's much more difficult. So have you had any cases where it's come down on you, or
we've had the ASCAP knock on our door
Yeah.
saying, hey, you can't stream music.
Okay.
We've had people do really like sexual content that we have to take down, or racial. Luckily not a lot, because as soon as we see it, then we block their phones and they can never come back. But yeah, there's cases where people put themselves at risk, and then it's a really difficult decision, right? Because they're very aware of what they're doing, but they're feeling egged on by the audience, right? So that's why it's a constant, very emotional and human kind of trade-off of what do you allow.
Yeah, and of course there are very bad scenarios. Yeah, the combination of live stream and face recognition. We all can imagine what that, what these results would look like.
They haven't announced that in the U.S. like
So-
maybe in Germany. So the facial recognition.
If we look at YouTube
Yeah, I mean,
and the
it is-
number of hours kind of created of UGC, the vast majority of them are non-issues in terms of death or violence or sex or
Cat videos.
cat videos or
It's interesting because
action sports videos.
I see opportunity. Like you brought up ASCAP. In your case, I would have said, "Well, thank you for the call, ASCAP. Have you heard about our opportunity to put that track for sale for immediate download where it's paid for?"
That's what we do.
He's already had that conversation.
That's what's happening with YouTube. Accidentally not caring, put a video up with a piece of music on, and I get an email saying, "Hey, you fresh copyright, but we're going to monetize
Yeah.
it and give it to."
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And as a music, but fine, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just
Which is a huge difference. It's a huge difference from when just maybe 18 months, 2 years ago,
Yeah, it'd be down.
where it would have been down.
Yeah.
No conversation, no anything.
Yeah, YouTube has created a interesting situation when you produce video, because in an environment like Facebook that has much more copyright control and fingerprint access for copyrighted music, or if you want to produce something for transaction VOD like Apple iTunes, you actually need to license the music, you need to clear it. But then YouTube creates actually that incentive to use popular music in your productions and leverage the awareness of that in the production, but then it creates a repurpose issue where you can't then repurpose that piece of work for other mediums.
Do you take on more of a mea culpa persona or thought process when dealing with live? Like, oops, sorry, and you apologize afterward, it did its job, and then you're like,
Ready, fire, aim.
yeah, I mean, so to your point about, like, again, with YouTube, there's a lot of stuff that's up there, and you post it up there for a certain, like, it's there, it's a DVR piece, or a VOD, or any of those three-letter words, or whatever. But yeah, with the live, it sort of gives you that flexibility if you wanted to be so bold. I mean, I call it the Zuckerberg rule, like, do whatever you want, and then like mea culpa afterwards, apologize.
Well, I think the other thing that's going on, whether it's on a user level, with what people like on Busker are trying to figure out what works, or for a media company trying to figure out what works, there's certainly examples of stuff that's, we're like, we thought that was a great idea, we put time, effort in, planning in, and it completely bombed in terms of engagement. And then the same thing of, there's a editor that's out at an event, whips out his phone with no planning, and captures that intimate moment that then really engages fans. So I think someone said we're in a vast experimenting phase, and we have some principles to go on. Mm-hmm. But I think there's going to be a lot of failure as we find the models that work for social live, and how those are different than the models that have been successful in like a YouTube environment.
We had a guy in Germany no offense, but he was.
It wasn't Andreas, so it's okay.
He was dressed in. He was a grown man dressed in tights. He's still on the platform, by the way, and he was wearing a face mask, really weird. And he had a watermelon in the middle of his room, and the room was empty. And then he started dancing around the watermelon like Beyonce. And it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen. And we thought, we should take this down. This guy is insane. And he had a big knife in his hand as well. So we were like, what is going on here? And then suddenly somebody tipped him money, and he started to do a little shake. And everybody started to join this broadcast. And he's now one of our, not top performers, but he makes a living on the app. Wow. So we
Doing
were
that
almost
dance with
ready.
the watermelon?
He actually did stuff with the watermelon. And it was,
That's just normal German theater.
No, not at all stuff, but it was very, suggestive. There was an element of suspense. Let me put it. So, the lesson was don't take it down too early because you want to kind of explore the fringes, but, there's always a line. You're constantly learning.
So, I was going to ask the question of why even consider live, but I think we've answered that. So why, if a client or if you as a platform or whatever was asking the question, should I do live social on this or not? What are those things that should be considered? I know we've talked about a few of them. It hasn't been so pointed as to what flips the switch to yes and what flips the switch to no. Anyone want to take that?
Well, I think if it's engaging and it draws people and draws users, absolutely. I mean, live is definitely the benefits of live is no one can steal your content because once it's over, it's done. You can then host it and rebroadcast it. But the allure of live, the benefit of live is it's live, and so you have that plus, and then. If you have lots of users who engage that and want that, and people want the live experience, they want to be involved in it. When you're watching something that's already been rebroadcast, you're not involved in it. The lure of live is that you're getting people involved, you're getting users engaged in what you're doing, and then the users are going to be more loyal to you and come back to your brands and be educated about what you do, and you can then migrate them to other things and for monetization things. But I think live is one of the best things out there because it really engages people. It keeps your content from being stolen, and it also keeps users loyal to you.
It's funny, you said stolen a bunch of times, and I was thinking nobody's going to want to steal that black outfit with a watermelon and a knife.
You'd be surprised.
He sold it for a lot of money.
I do think one of the things that, maybe two trends moving in conflict with each other is we're starting to see a video experience that users are starting to like around video with no audio, and some of that's text-based and things like that. And it's a little anecdotal, but I think about how I use my phone, and a lot of times I don't respond to live stream notifications that I get across different platforms because I'm just in a place where I don't want any audio, on, but I might watch a video that I can understand what's happening without sound. So I think that's something for people to think about because we're just seeing lots of signs that, especially younger audiences, there's like capsule type videos that we can produce for them that have no sound, there's no intention for it, and so I'm interested to see how those things get resolved.
It's interesting because there was data that just came out that with Facebook Live, they said that 1 out of every 5 Facebook users is consuming some live video. Of that, the biggest audience demographic-wise is 24 to 35 is the highest percentage, and then the next one is the 35 to 44, and that goes along with what you were just saying about millennials. Maybe it's that they don't want the long form, maybe that they don't want the audio. I know if I'm
Facebook audience is getting older.
Yes, that too. Yeah.
Part of that is what Facebook has done specifically to aggressively tilt the algorithm. So if you're, as a media company that relies on advertising, September 2015 was a pretty dark day when Facebook tweaked the algorithm and a lot of media companies, BuzzFeed, us, saw a pretty substantive drop in referral traffic from that particular platform. And depending on the brand, we were anywhere from 30 to 60% dependent on that referral traffic that was coming back, that was creating ad impressions and making money. So they tilted the algorithm for native video initially, then they tilted the algorithm to promote specifically live. So that's a platform kind of driving specifically an initiative. So as a media company, what we have to do is deal with the tension of how do we are addicted to the big numbers, and particularly our editors love seeing the big numbers on the social platforms, but then the monetization is on the destination. So you have to evolve that and really develop your monetization strategy where your audience is, and that's a process that we continue to go through. That we've had some success, but we still need to get.
So let's talk monetization solutions. Jeff brought up about the Prager model of do live for 15 minutes and then drive to essentially VOD. What are some other monetization models we either should be using, should be looking out for, et cetera?
Can I just make one quick point?
Yeah.
You asked why should we be doing live? Live is the best thing ever. I think hype is a little bit overhyped.
Yeah.
And I think, for us, the rule is if something is great on live, it's not great on VOD, and vice versa, right? It's not always true, but generally speaking, right? If you can make a beautiful video of a cooking show with 5 cooks in a Brooklyn flat, and you edit it into a 10-minute clip, that could be amazing.
Right.
That doesn't have to be live. Usually it's worse live. There's other stuff with participation and engagement that is amazing on live. Tom Cruise can with the suspense, it's not as great to watch when it's recorded, right? So I think as a rule, it's either great live as a format or an idea, or it's great on VOD. And I think you have to think about the format and the idea first, and then choose whether it's live or recorded. Right.
No, thank you for that. And
Totally, yeah. And one example for monetization for a media company, and a good example where live really made sense, was Fox Sports Brazil during the Olympics. They acquired live feeds from a multitude of sources, like mobile phones, around the stadiums, and professional feeds. And they made ongoing live streams on Facebook, simultaneously on YouTube, with lots of success. And sometimes they used selected feeds in the TV program. And the result was monetization on Facebook was very, very low. So for Fox Sports, totally irrelevant. But they increased the number of viewers on the TV. And that was the success story. So the monetization was classical ad sales on TV, but they used live on social media to market the TV program. And pretty successful, and they are now continuing doing that.
And I think, like I said earlier, I think one of the major advantages to live is that you have people engaged in what you're doing. When you create a brilliant cooking show and you put it out there, the people watch the show and then they move on, and there's no real engagement. There's nothing for them to click on and go. But you can, and you can do things. I mean, you can involve people involve them in multiple devices. So like you have iPads and iPhones and Androids, and involving them in those and taking those live feeds and then bringing them into what you're doing, and selling them things. One of the big success stories we did was it wasn't technically live, but it was live. It was broadcast. So we had the Sons of Anarchy show, and during the broadcast of the Sons of Anarchy show, users were following along with the show while it was going live. They were able to engage and talk to the producers, stuff like that. They were also able to buy the items. So there was the sunglasses that was used by Jax, the head motorcycle guy. They sold 65,000 sunglasses in one season, just in social engagement, on getting people involved in it, because people wanted, and people saw that. So and then they captured those people and they brought them over to the other brands that the sunglasses sold, other products and stuff like that. So there's definitely a huge opportunity to engage with those people and become and make them loyal to what you do and other brands that you recommend, that you represent, and then also bring them over to other shows that you do.
Right.
I'm doing this live. You might like this live and stuff like that, and build up. Maybe you have one street performer that does really good. Maybe the watermelon guy does good, but maybe there's another guy that's not doing so good. So the watermelon guy can leverage this other video, and that could be some engagement there and some help to build other live shows.
Right.
Because when you talk about social live, the audiences tend to be a lot smaller, right? You have lots of micro little audiences, 50 people, 100 people, and to monetize that on a CPM basis is impossible. And brands find it very difficult to put money into that because it's too fragmented. So I totally agree with you. If you make it transactional, right, and we have that with tipping and shopping, which is totally native to the experience. You don't have to leave the broadcast to go to a website. You just click a button and you've bought it. Right? That starts to work as a business model. So, we're a particular case because we really do social live with, a small group of people streaming to each other. But then the money that comes out of that is on a CPM basis, $500 CPM, $1,000 CPM. It's crazy.
So I would say, because we, from a media perspective, have more substantive scale within our specific segments, branded entertainment, which is not a new concept in terms of just native video or native social, has been a key driver. So one of the things that we've started to do from a live perspective is product reveals. And so our Motor Trend team has been coordinating with brands to do essentially at auto shows live product launches on the Motor Trend channel, at a car show. So it brings the experience and the surprise aspect of what is the car going to be, what is it going to look like, and the car companies are paying for that. We produced an event called the Do Tour. We live streamed it on Facebook, which resulted in about 85% of the consumption of that live event was on Facebook, even though it was just a straight webcast. But because the brands were integrated either in the skate park or in the calls out for the shows, it was all paid for as part of the value prop. So brand entertainment really has been a key driver for us.
Let me turn us to the end line here, and I'll just start with a quick story, a sad story. I was doing a weekly social live cast on Blab, which was the platform that worked for us, that we could have multiple talking heads at the same time. We could invite people in. There was that immediate response of people asking questions, or we could invite people to take open seats. And it was all about geek fandoms. It was called Geeks with Gray Hair. And we did it not for money. We did it from a thought perspective and just see where it goes. The platform's gone. All those videos, luckily we put them up on YouTube, but there's a lot of people that thought, I've got all this content that's archived. We all deal with that, whether it's with our clients, with our own platform, all that type of stuff of what considerations do we make for the future? And so whether it is that we're dealing with a big brand or just ourselves trying to create a thought leadership, et cetera, or just let ourselves be known, what do you guys see as what do you consider now and into the future as solutions? And I know you answer these questions all the time because you've just started this and you've obviously got a roadmap. But for everybody, what are those things? If we're talking about the future, if we're talking about, we know that platforms are coming and going, what are you looking for? End question.
Well, first of all, always back up your videos. Don't ever depend on one platform to be there, because it might or probably won't be there, because everything migrates and changes. So always back up your videos and always back up your product locally, not just on multiple platforms, but back one locally. But what I say is, and what I tell a lot of my clients is, don't give your video content to these platforms, because these platforms they have control over your platform. You take control over your own content, and you can host your content on this thing.
I'm sorry to interrupt, Jeff, but my problem is, if I have my own platform, I've got to spend so much money and effort to get people to care about my own platform. Whereas with Facebook, it's just a matter of getting people to like me. And so that platform's already there. I get what you're saying about backing up. I want to know about what are those platforms, because I don't think anybody in this room has the money.
You don't have to. I totally get that. And it's like we did with Dennis Prager when we did them. They stream the first 15 minutes of the show onto Facebook and get that audience and draw that audience back to their website where they're streaming live from their website. And that's what a lot of our clients are doing. You can give some of your content to them, but be careful, because when you do, that's where it lives, and that's where it is. If you want to, if you want to take your own app and invent your own app, it's about a $200,000 investment to do that. But or if you want to do the Cisco app, that's about 180, about 15 grand a month. But if you were to develop your own platform on your own website and do that, but use the social media, I definitely, Facebook Live, Google Hangouts, all those places, use those to draw audiences to you. That's what we've kind of, that's our one of our performance solutions that we try to teach people is to, use these other engagements that have a lot of user base, but take them and drag them back to your own brand.
Cool. Nathan, what are you thinking?
I don't have a good answer for that. I mean, it's interesting that year over year we map out strategies and we do planning and then 9-12 months later we're talking about entirely different things than we were the year before. Right. So it's really difficult, but I think that's why it's just really important to stay connected. Conversations like these, get different perspectives on things, and even if something doesn't seem like it has a direct relationship to what you do, you'll have good takeaways for it.
And you have vendors that come to you all the time saying, "Oh, we've got this."
That's right. Yeah.
So anything that's not that you have to name names, but are there feature sets that you've seen that you've been like, "Oh, I wish we had this now"?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'll broadly say that of the 200 solicitations I might get a year, we might do something meaningful to 2 of them.
Wow.
But I think one thing that seems really interesting beyond some of the catchphrase type stuff around how they'll help with ad blocking or how they'll help with X is, there do seem to be some vendors who can assist in just measuring the real estate of what on your own platform, what a content experience is. Whether that's a story or it's a video or it's a photo gallery or it's a list, those are the type of things that we do. So if someone can say, you're missing opportunities here, or you're not amplifying opportunities here, in terms of determining whether you use a video asset or display ads or content recommendation services like Taboola, I think those would be great, because I think digital organizations have really struggled to understand what the value of their content is, and they're just throwing things on the page.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd even add that there's probably a business opportunity for someone to look at the digital asset management of social content, for media companies. Because I can honestly say, we've got 50 brands, we've got hundreds of social channels. We're not, there's a level of disposability of that content that's probably not really in the enterprise value best interest of our investors. So, but it's not, given the pantheon of problems that we're trying to solve, on a day-to-day basis, that it hasn't risen all the way up to the level of kind of how do I archive. But we do. There's particularly Facebook Live, there's an ability to pull out the source file, and then if you plan a show well or a concept well, the ability to kind of repurpose that into your digital asset management platform. Put it on YouTube, put it on Instagram. So well-planned kind of live show can have snippets that fall out the back for other platforms.
I would say that if I were to say future, I would say the next thing's exciting us is HTML5 and the because the biggest problem with streaming live is bandwidth issues, and especially in the United States, we have huge bandwidth issues here. And we need greater bandwidth to stream out live, and then we're also looking. A lot of people are excited in this, especially in this conference, about VR, and there really is not a lot of bandwidth to do VR. You can't really do it. I mean, to give a big example is YouTube. did, put VR cameras in at their concerts throughout the whole audience and on the stage, and it was it was okay for some of the concerts, but most of the concerts it had huge big problems because of bandwidth issues, because they were offering a lot. You couldn't make the concert. You could watch it in VR, and most people couldn't because they didn't have the bandwidth issues to get there.
Chef, I'm sorry to cut you. We're over time
Okay,
now.
sorry.
I want to make sure that everybody has some input. When everybody does, I've got my big idea, big moneymaker that somebody can take from this. But any other thoughts on what we're looking at platform-wise or feature set-wise or whatever that would be?
Yeah, not in regards of storing video, but as a content producer, it is a huge chance in the future to have billions of potential camera people worldwide who can just start working for you, and this is amazing. What that could be for them, and for us in regards of new formats, especially when it comes to user participation. And as a consumer, I would definitely recommend buy latex masks in the future.
Latex masks?
Latex, sorry, thank you. Yeah. No, because really, everything will be live, nearly. Especially when something is going on.
So you're saying from a privacy perspective?
For the privacy
There's a virus into all of us. The mobile phone is going in the air, and it will be live most of the time. And so, if you want to be not visible, then that is our next startup.
Right.
Basically hide.
It's almost like you've got to have a force field around you that just digitizes. Lipa, do you have any?
Talking about that, but I don't understand how that should work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lipa, do you have any?
Yeah, well, I can leave you with a tip. Read The Circle, which is a book.
The Circle?
The Circle. It's a fictional book, and it talks about this idea of the whole world is live streaming each other, and it takes place 10 years from now, and it's mind blowing and it's happening right now.
It's happening.
Right.
Yeah.
It's happening.
I love when the books that are of the future are happening now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was you or I don't know who said about the transcription. I think that could be huge business when you're talking about live or any type of video, that there's transcription. So if somebody doesn't want to have audio, that you can still see and follow along. Anyway, we do have a question. Great. Fabulous.
The Circle, is that by Sid Luke?
No, it's Dave Eggers. Yeah, it's a great read.
Look up Sid Luke.
I will.
So, but what was the name of your circle, or the author of your circle?
Dave Eggers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so with live video, you guys, I don't think have addressed the idea that, like we were giving an example of a cooking show or a sports event, where the purpose is to show different views. So where do you think that's going? Do you think the audiences really want that? The customers really want to be able to, watching a football game, to be able to sit around, and I know there's looking forward and looking back. But
Yeah,
I think
of course.
that at least a percentage of them would be like, yeah, I want to see that. I want to see the rerun over here. I want to keep my eye on this one over here. I want to be able to look at this camera view over here because I want to see my alumni in that section or something. So how do you guys, and that's all live video, so it's like 4 or 5 series live video. So how do you guys see that growing in the future where, there's multiple lives and we're using it because we want different views of the same thing? Maybe different views, like let's say Paris, one of the Paris terrorist attacks, different views through the city, maybe even 5 different news networks all on the same screen.
I think that's a fascinating question. So there's a bunch of threads in there, right? But take a football game, right? Some people will find it really interesting to switch camera viewpoints. A lot of people don't, right? Because they want a professional to do that. So I can see room for both, but it's possible now. So I think you attract a different kind of hardcore audience that will pay for that.
Totally. Yeah.
Right?
Did anybody
Totally
see that on, I watched the debates over an ABC News app on Apple TV.
Oh, that's a great thing.
And they had the 5 cameras and, one example of me. I didn't like that. I wanted the classic sort of both candidates doing that thing, but I don't know if anybody else experienced that and they were going for a certain camera because you had, I think, 4 or 5 choices.
All solutions.
On the ABC app on Apple TV.
Yeah, when they were live streaming that.
There are actually a number of different ways. We did some streams of events, and we had one stream event where we did a rock concert, and we had 16 cameras around the rock concert, and you can log on and you could choose to watch whatever camera you wanted. I could choose camera 1, other guy choose camera 3, and you could have as many users as you want. Each of them can choose a different camera.
I think the customization of the content isn't particularly like a new thing. I mean, Sky were doing it from the day they started broadcasting the Premier League. But for social video, that's when it comes into its own, because I can then recommend to a friend who's also watching, check out camera 16 or check out the camera over there. You won't believe the angle you're getting. You can see him playing every note, or you can, you know, whatever it is you choose to draw attention to. I think that's where it comes into its own from a social perspective, is how you can actually draw focus to your peers and your friends group.
Or where it's everybody connecting to the Wi-Fi at Levi's Stadium, so that as people have their own devices up, if you're able to do that and pick, again, it comes back to how involved do you want to be.
Right.
I think it certainly plays into what, Andres, what yours does, where it can put all of that stuff up, that the director can choose all these extra angles without having to pay for the equipment to go there.
Yeah, and of course the director could be the viewer, and the viewer could become a director, and this is the great thing in the cloud. Yeah, everybody's just one click from the other role. But I would say yes, but one thing has to be solved, and this is the feeds have to be visible.
Right.
You don't
They
want
have to be on line at the same time.
you have to be. You have to see them. You don't want to click on a blank camera and an automatic generated thumbnail, which is it tells you nothing. So this has to be solved. All the solutions which are out right now are kind of crappy in regards of the user experience, and that's in my opinion the reason why it's not flying already.
Interestingly, the closest that I've gotten to where I can choose the feed is YouTube's Coachella coverage, where they've got 3 stages that they cover, but still it's just one camera at each. But at least there's conversation. Oh, go check out this set or whatever. But yeah, that's the closest that I've actually participated.
You can experience this on an amateur level when there's a breaking news event like the Paris attacks, and you went on one of the live streaming platforms. Yeah. You could easily pinpoint those people. You had 15 live streams. You could jump from one to the other. Now, some of them were black screens and they disappeared quickly.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But you got that really raw multi-screen experience that you could, create yourself on the moment. It's pretty exciting.
Well, we could be talking for hours. We're 10 minutes beyond our schedule. I want to thank everybody for coming and joining us. I really want to thank you guys for great insight and making this look good.
Thank you. Thank you. All the way through it. This is great.